Welcome to Write On, the podcast from Final Draft. We are here to talk about all things screenwriting. I'm your host, Phil Galasso. On today's episode, guest host Sharday Sellers chats with Alana Pena, creator of Disney's Diary of a Future President.
Dear Diary, everyone has that voice inside their head, right? Mine is future me.
Growing up is so hard.
Together, we're tackling 7th grade.
Something's wrong with Melissa's arm. I think she's waving.
Apparently, over the summer, everything changed. And my BFF had a new BF.
Wait, what?
So much has happened in the past 15 hours.
And now we're holding hands.
Things are moving so fast.
Oh no. Can you get out of my head? I'm busy.
7th grade wasn't exactly going according to plan.
And lastly, tree number 2, Elena Cañeta-Reed.
And it wasn't just school where things were different.
We have some really big news. Sam is moving in. I listened to my heart. What do I think I am? Rose from Titanic? Look where she ended up.
In possession of a priceless jewel, living to be 101, being drawn by peak Leo.
Bobby had a lot on his plate, too.
You had a crush and never said anything? Who is she?
I don't know if I'm ready to tell anyone yet.
Diary, this year was off to a rough start.
I'm used to knowing everything.
You're not alone anymore. There's about to be another whole adult in the house.
Hey, check this out.
Sort of.
I had such high expectations for this year. Now I feel so lost.
Bit by bit, she's pushing me away.
They're not growing apart. She's just growing up.
I'm their mother. I'm supposed to help them solve their problems, not give them problems.
Have you met a Latina mother?
I'm trying to break the cycle.
Don't shut out the people who are eager to lift you up. You're more annoying than my mom. You and I are the same person.
Being there for you is kind of my job.
Being there for others and lifting them up. That's what I want to do. I'm ready.
Diary of a Future President. All episodes streaming August 18.
You again? I'm having a moment.
I am you. This is your voice.
I don't remember sounding this shrill. I'm sorry. That was uncalled for. Why are men never called shrill?
Alana told us about how she pitched the show to Disney, the shows that influenced her growing up, the importance of authenticity in storytelling, and more. Check it out.
Welcome back to Write On, everyone. It's me again, Sharday. I'm so happy to be back from Hawaii because now I get to interview all my favorite people, including one of my new favorite friends. We've only been friends for like 5 minutes, but we are besties now. I've claimed it. Alana Pena from Diary of Future President. Hi. Hello.
Hi. We're definitely friends. We're
definitely friends. Definitely besties. We're both wearing crew necks. It's meant to be. I wish I had my glasses and my hair up, and then we could really be twinning. First of all, I want to mention there's a little small, like, serendipitous connection between us. Monica Jolia is you know, yes, you already knew. One of the directors from season 2.
She's the best. How do you know her?
She directed the movie I wrote, my first feature film called Deadly Dispatch, like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I can't remember last time. And she's told me that she was going to direct on the show and how much she loved it and the experience and the cast and everyone. And then when I got offered to do this, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, because Monica already told me this is amazing. So
oh, she's the best. She brought her energy is incredible. She literally had like a pin that because it was, we shot in the thick of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so she had a little pin that she wore with a picture of herself smiling. And it said, I'm smiling under my mask. And I was like, as soon as I met her, I was like, you are amazing. I love everything about you. And her episode is one of my favorites. She's just, and I've recommended her to so many people since then. Morinike Evans, hire her. She's amazing.
No, she is. This has now become the Morinike podcast. Like, I'll text her later and say, I shouted you out again on the podcast. But I love small connected things like that, because good people know good people. Yeah. And if you know her, then you're a good person. So I'm like, okay, we're going to have a good time here.
Yay.
Okay, let's talk about the show. It's currently in season 2. I trolled on the hashtag on Twitter and people love this show. And I watched a couple of episodes this week and I get it, because growing up, I wish I had a show like this. I am this little girl. I was the nerd. I love social studies. I had the calendar where I highlighted, I still do, where I highlight all the appointments. And when I was watching the pilot and she forgot that her presentation for social studies was that day. I was like, oh, that's me. I would have freaked out. I would have called my mom same way and said, pick me up. Can't do this. And my mom, just like her mother, would have said, no.
Right? Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yes.
And I loved watching that scene because I was like, oh, she's going to be so better for that. Like, she's going to be so much better for this when she gets to go through it. So I want to know how much of this is derived from your life growing up. Middle school is such a weird can I curse? Yes. A weird time for everyone.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to capture. Elena is very much based on me. I mean, we're different, and Tess Romero, who plays Elena, has brought so much to the character and made it, more incredible than I could have dreamed. But yeah, I wanted to sort of write about that like nerdy type A, messy middle school girl that like I hadn't really seen. When I was coming up with the idea for Diary, I think boyhood stories are, boys are allowed to be messy and flawed. And like, it's Malcolm in the Middle. It's Wonder Years. It's Everybody Hates Chris. It's great shows. But there aren't the ones for girls are more like only geared toward younger audiences, like only Disney Channel, which is also great. And I grew up on like Lizzie McGuire and That's So Raven and Hannah Montana and all that. But I just kind of was like, why? We got to let girls be messy. We got to let girls be flawed. We got to let girls exist in a family show, not just for other girls. Yeah. My 6th grade diary was like a huge inspiration. I found my 5th grade diary and the way I wrote in it, I don't know if you have a diary, but the way I wrote in it was like writing for an audience. Like I was a little writer and I was writing just like when I would have like a moment with my crush and I'd write it like a play. Like I was writing it like with like descriptive adjectives and like page turning surprises. But then of course on the front, it was like private. Yeah. And I was like, that's so interesting because that's like to get inside a middle school girl's head is like, you kind of want the world to know, but you don't want anyone to know. And I wanted to sort of capture that feeling.
Oh gosh, I've had so many cringe moments watching this show going, oh, I did this. The boy, her crush on this boy in this show, you guys, cracks me up because the reveal of him, you're like, she's building up, oh, he's the cutest. And he just looks like a boy. And you're just
he's
like,
nothing special. You're
like, yep, that is what middle school is. You're just so enthralled by these really basic boys. And then you grow up and you realize it better. But I might be dating myself. Do you remember, speaking of diaries, a website called like Diaryland or something?
No, what's that?
I'm an old millennial, y'all. Okay. There was a website a long time ago where it was a public diary. You would write your diary online, but people could read it. That's where I had my diary. And God, I hope that website is taken down.
It was like your version of a Tumblr live journal, but it was like a diary.
Yes. And I believe it was called Diaryland. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was. But yes, it was like a live journal type way before there's a live journal or a Tumblr. And I specifically remember writing about how nervous I was at school because... like Elena, I had one best friend and we were really nerdy. Like when you think about it now, you're like, we were awkward kids.
Well, you mentioned, we were talking before we started recording about roommates. My current roommate is my middle school best friend. My current roommate is my Sasha. So we were like, holding hands and braving middle school together when we were awkward and figuring it all out. And now we're doing the same with our 30s. So
I love it.
All you need is one.
Yes. And my middle school best friend, Amy, I call her every day. We live in different states, but that doesn't stop us from literally talking all of the time. It's just something about cultivating those friendships young and carrying them with you through adulthood is so fun because we see each other grow and, or not grow in some respects. When you look at our dating history, sometimes we need a little...
and they become like a mirror. Like no one knows you better because she is like a limb. Like she knows all the mistakes I've made and all the like thoughts that I've had and shared with her. And I know all about her too. So it's like when we start new things in our life, it's like, it's nice to have that mirror.
I also love the relationship with the brother because I don't really see that a lot on TV. I see a lot of sisters or brothers. I am the oldest and I have a younger brother. So it's a little switched here, but I think brother-sister relationships are so fun and they're so unique. And I love the relationship that she has with her brothers because that's exactly how I feel, even though I'm the oldest, about mine.
No, I switched it. I am the older sister to a younger brother. I just made it an older brother because, so that older teenagers could identify. But I also have some step siblings, and one of my step siblings is a brother. And so I kind of like combine both. But yeah, I remember like early drafts of Diary, like to the studio, and people were like, the studio was like, it's so great to see like a brother and a sister supporting each other. Yes. And that's when I realized like, we don't really see that very much.
No.
And I just, my brother and I shared a bathroom, just like Elena and Bobby. Like we had the like Jack and Jill bathroom, and that it's just such a perfect way to get these siblings like in the same space and talking. And I was just home like visiting, and my brother was home, and it was like the same thing. Like we were just like in the Jack and Jill bathroom, only now he's 28 and I'm asking about grad school.
Yeah, it's such a lovely relationship, especially because you're an older sister, as you just said, and so am I. I kind of raised my brother, or at least I saw them. I guess I didn't do much raising. My mother would be like, "Are you kidding? You didn't change a diaper." All right, fair. But I was there to see all of the childhood moments, and now we can have conversations as adults because they will be graduating high school this year, and it's like, whoa, we're entering a new layer of our friendship and our siblingship. Where we're like, I'm talking to you about adult things because you are an adult now. And this is quite lovely. Speaking of earlier drafts of the show, I want to know, you're formulating the show, you're obviously referencing on your life. What was the pitch like? Like, how do you sit down and say, this is the show I want to make?
Yeah. So when we pitched to Disney Plus, I wrote it on spec. I wrote a pilot. And for some people, we did like a leave behind for the pilot. And for some, and for Disney, they had already read it, which was cool because they had read it and they had really liked it. So when I walked in, they were like, oh my, it was like as if I was like a cool person to them because I think they knew Elena was based off me. So they read it. So they had a bit of a sense of the characters in the world and like my voice. And then I was actually just looking at the pitch, like an hour ago, because I sent it to a friend as an example. So it was basically how I started was I read from my 6th grade diary. And then it's so funny because pitches are so like, you rehearse your lines, you memorize it. This was pre-Zoom. So like it was all memorized. Yeah. And then every time I would read from my diary, without fail, every executive would stop me and talk about their own diary. Like it was like in that part of the pitch, everyone was like, oh, I have something to say. And when that first happened, I was like, well, I think we maybe have something here. If like everybody's like, oh my God, I remember that. Or, oh my God, my friends and I did that and da-da-da.
Yeah.
So I would read from my diary and then I would basically go through like, I want to write, I would talk about the wanting to show like a messy middle school girl. And then a lot of those stories are origin stories. And I was like, she's based on me, but I don't really want to make her like a TV writer. So why not just make her like the most powerful woman in the country and go from there?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, why not? It's TV. We can, and that also is such a cool, like, she can be that. She will be that. Let's see how she gets there. And then I went through, characters. I did it in a very, like, I was just looking at it. Like, I think Sasha was called like the ally or something. Mm-hmm. And like everybody's like every character's thing, like Ryan Tyler, who was like, he was like a popular cool boy. He was like the opponent. Like everybody had like a political sort of moniker.
Oh, that's very smart.
Which is what we ended up doing. Like all the episode titles are sort of like political phrases. And then if I would be like, hey, here's an episode idea, I would then read, like the show has VO, I would basically like read the VO. Like I'd be like, and then in this, like Elena gets her period. And this is a joke that never made it in, but I always thought was funny. I was like, wow, like as Elena, like I'm wearing my first pad. Now I'm going to get it wrong. If being a woman is anything like wearing a pad, it's really uncomfortable. I'm going to find it because I just sent it. It's really uncomfortable. But I'm going to something, keep doing it. Hold on. I'm going to find it.
Good safety net. No, well, there is a scene in the pilot where these girls are talking about using a tampon and then Elena and her friends are like, oh my God, they're so grown up, a tampon. And I related that so much because I was like, I still use pads. I don't like tampons because I'm afraid.
Yeah. Well, and that's what me in middle school. And I felt so alone because I didn't see anything represented. So, okay, here's the line. If being a woman is anything like wearing my first pad, it's uncomfortable, but I can't wait to absorb everything.
Oh my God.
That was the line. I like said that as Elena in the pitch.
Should have made it. Should have made the cut.
I know. I'm like,
why didn't make it good cut? Well, that's why you mentioned Lizzie McGuire. I feel like that was the last time I watched a show and I was like, oh yeah, this I get. And this I feel. Because Lizzie was also, she had her friends, but she wasn't popular. And she was kind of this dweeb and she loved her family and things like that. So Elena in this show she's so goal oriented. That was me. I always knew in my small town in Michigan, I was like, I'm out of here. I know where I'm going to go. And who knew it'd be in Burbank doing the same things I was doing in Michigan. That was good. Nothing's changed. I want to ask you though, did you ever stop writing in your diary, or have you kept things up?
No, I wish I'd kept it. But I can't lie. My sixth grade diary was 6th and 7th were probably the most committed I ever was.
Yeah.
And I had like a 6th grade diary that I sort of stopped. I was new in 6th grade. I was new in school. So I feel like the diary was like my friend. And then as I started getting more friends, I like wrote less and less, but then 7th grade was all the changes. And 7th grade, I wrote a lot. And then I honestly, this is so lame and stupid, but like when I sort of found writing, like creative writing, and started Valen became my diary. Like not to be a total, corny, whatever, but that's, if I need to like look back, like, oh, how was I feeling when I was like 22? Like that's like the pilot I wrote called Adulting. You know what I mean? Like that's
it. It's a time capsule.
That is my diary.
It's a time capsule.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I'm not good at diary. I always commend Taylor Swift because she keeps a diary and I cannot do it. I'm not committed, but I love stationery. So I buy lots of diaries. I just write.
I have so many.
See? So many.
I'm holding up beautiful diaries.
She's holding up beautiful flower diaries. And I have tons just the same, but I did find a passage, I guess in my early 20s, I was trying, and it was like, I hate everything about LA. My career's not working out. I was doing background at the time and I was like, nothing's going to work out. And this is horrible. And I moved away and I wasted my time. And it was really nice to sit as a 31-year-old in my condo and go, oh my gosh, it did work out. Like, look at you, look at going back 10 years. You were so doubtful of yourself. You were so anxious and all you had to do was just be patient. So I love the idea of the show of Elena being the president of the United States. I was a little sad. It did give me a somber moment though, because I was like, we were so close to making this like a real thing. And I pray we get to see this as a real thing during my lifetime. But I'm grateful for a show like yours that can show young women. I don't think I've ever seen a show that has a female president.
We were very conscious of not making the show like specifically set in 2021 because we didn't want to be like, we have to wait 20 years before we see that. Like the show exists in a sort of ambiguous era. We called it the Nowish. Like they have iPhones and there's Instagram, but like we never say like it is 2000 whatever, because I want to believe that Elena could have been 20 years ago and she could be president, very soon. So it's very much wish fulfillment. And also I like to think, you mentioned Twitter, and I see a lot of like, fans that are like young and teenagers. And it's just like, it shouldn't be a fantasy. Like I remember when Diary came out, everyone was like there was this, oh my God, like this is such an incredible, amazing like thing to see a Latina president. And I'm so like, I forgot that part. I like so badly want that part to not be fantasy.
Yeah.
That I just was like, oh, right. Like it's meaningful because we don't have it yet. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is why we need it. But like, the part of, I just wish it was ubiquitous. I wish it wasn't so revolutionary to see that on TV,
I know it's coming. I just don't know when, if it's during my lifetime. I'm very blessed. My grandmothers who aren't with us anymore, they lived through so many different presidents until they finally saw a Black president before they both passed away. So I'm very hopeful, but same with you. I wish it wasn't a fantasy, but it is really nice to see on TV for young girls, especially growing up. Like I said, I wish I had a show like this, especially I don't talk about this very much because, but my family's from Belize. My mom was born in Honduras. We're Latino.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I love seeing representation like that on this screen. I think I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you are Cuban descent.
Yes. My dad was born in Cuba.
Awesome. Okay. So when you're pitching to Disney, because I love that you have Spanish in the show as well, and you don't subtitle it. It's just a part of the show, and you can get it or you don't get it, and it's fine. You know, when you're pitching to Disney, how important was you to say this has to be through a Latina lens? I need this to happen.
Extremely important. I mean, if like mainly because that's my story and that's my background. And it's like, if I want to tell a story from a place of like authenticity, that's how I grew up. You know, I am a Cuban American girl from Miami. Like it's anything else would be not as honest, but also to present and humanize this Latinx family on TV. I was going to say when I was pitching it, but sadly it's still true when I was pitching it. And now, you know, we had and have the border crisis, and there were, you know, the kids being separated from their families. And so I said in the pitch, I was like, you know, it is so important to present these families on screen, not just to show them, but to show them with humor and heart. And so it's not just like, so people can see them doing all of the things that everybody does and not just see them in the news being persecuted. And that was hugely important to me because this family it's so full of love. It's a comedy. They laugh, they support each other, they help each other out. They experienced a loss like my family. My dad passed away when I was 5, but like I grew up with so much joy. And I was like, I want to write a hopeful show about a Latinx family because really, really sadly, you don't turn on the TV and see that very often.
No, you don't. And it's so interesting. We're talking about diaries, but my grandmother just passed away 2 weeks ago. And
sorry.
Thank you. One of the things I found in her room was a diary, but not a diary that she kept. She kind of wrote everything down about her life before she passed, which I'm so.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I actually got to read the story of her immigration. She never told me the story of how they immigrated here. And then to see it page by page and go, wow, she really went through a lot. She sacrificed a lot. And you know, as growing up as a kid, you don't see that stuff. You just see grandma, and she, you know, we didn't think of ourselves as any different from any other American family. Like, our food's different. We talk differently, but I grew up in Michigan with everyone else. So I love a show like this because they are a family. They're an American family. They're a Latin family. They have love. They have a lot of other things more than just crisis and drama. They go through normal things like everyone else does.
Yeah. So, they're not defined by their identity. It's a big part of them. But Gloria Calderon-Kellett, who's a friend of mine I saw her on a panel years ago before Diary. And she's like, it's not like I wake up every morning and I say, enough Latina. And I was like, that's so true. Because like we're human beings and we have work and deadlines and relationships and regrets and crushes and that's everybody. We're all human beings. And that's what I want to present on the screen while also honoring my identity and my background. But, you know, again, I didn't wake up every day and say another day as a Latina. I woke up and I was like, did I forget my social studies assignment?
Exactly. Which I still have nightmares about, by the way. Same. Missing assignments in high school and can't find me in my locker is something that's a recurring.
Mine is about my class schedule. My nightmare is that I can't remember my schedule.
Yes. And I'll go to the office, the registrar's office. I need my schedule, where my class is. It's so annoying, you guys.
It's literally like how funny that our dream world we're going to like an admin office.
Yeah. Like how lame am I that my I don't know how blessed am I? My biggest concern in my dreams is like, hey, I need to find my class so I can be on time.
Do I have science now or English?
What's the class? I want to go back to the pitching really quick because I know that the listeners or Final Draft listeners, they're probably like, you didn't ask the question about how were you able to pitch to Disney? That's everyone's biggest question. Like, how were you able to pitch the spec, especially?
Yeah, so I was a writer's assistant on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend on the CW.
Great show.
That show raised me. I started as I had a bunch of jobs before that, but I started as an assistant, worked my way up. And I was a writer's assistant and I had my first episode and I got agents for the first time. And the sample I had was like more of a dramedy and they were like, we want more of like a hard comedy. Send us some ideas. So I sent a few ideas and they were like, we like this president one, write it. And I was like, okay. And because I'm my character, I wrote it like, you know, I did my homework. Like I didn't want them to drop me. You know, I was going through all the, like, I want to be the perfect A+ client, which I don't necessarily recommend. You have to like be a full person, but I was, you know, it just meant that I worked really hard. And so after the room, I would sit in the writer's room and I would write this pilot. And then I was staffed on season 4 of Crazy Ex as a writer. And because I, had such a close relationship with my bosses and mentors, they were able to carve development out of my deal as a staff writer, which is not always the case, but I felt very lucky. So then I forget when this happened, but Gina Rodriguez's company was interested. Yes. That was amazing. And they had a deal with CBS Studios, which was also the studio that Crazy Ex was. So it also worked out like carving out wise. And so then I was paired with a supervisor and worked on a pitch and worked on the pilot and just started taking it out. And here's the thing. My agents were like, when they said we want you to take it out to producers, like Gina and other producers, I didn't know what that meant. Like, I was just like, okay. I was like, sounds good. Again, I just like didn't want them to drop me. So I was like, cool. And it was, when I realized what that meant and what that meant we were pitching the show, I was like, oh, I love that. And this show is is my heart. It just like sprung from me. So it was very I don't want to say easy because it was a lot of work, but it was very natural for me to see it as a series. Like it was my life, I mean, not 100%. It was inspired by my life, but I was just like, I can see this going and going and going. I can see these characters. I see it in my head. And so we pitched it kind of all over because this show, could exist on broadcast. It could exist on streaming, and Disney Plus didn't exist yet. It was like still a year out, I think, from coming out because we pitched October 2018, and it came out November 2019.
Yeah.
And they were looking for original material that still felt like it was kind of in the Disney brand. Family co-viewing was really important to them. And that was something that I really was important to me, that Diary wasn't just a kid show, like a show kids could enjoy, but not just a kid show. And it just kind of like, I know that it was just like, a lot of things transpiring at the same time in a very fortunate way. And they were just like, and it was my first time pitching things and it went really well. And I was like, cool. Like, I hope I can, sell a pilot because Crazy Ex is ending. And then they were like, we want 10 episodes.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And then they ordered 10 more. So I haven't really stopped breathing since, but
it just happens.
Yeah. And so it was really, really lucky. And the Disney executives were so amazing and committed to bringing this to life. And it was cool to help launch a platform.
And I hope you don't mind that I say this to the listeners. I didn't ask this question to discourage anyone. I hope no one listens to this and go, oh, what it is that I like asking that question because all of our writing journeys are different. Mm-hmm. It sounded like not only were you prepared and you had the experience, but the things lined up perfectly to make this happen. And it also sounded like you knew your niche and you knew exactly what you had. You had a strong foundation, which is your life. You took something that you knew had a strong foundation to do, and you worked your butt off and you crafted a pilot, but you also knew what the show was. You were very confident in what the show was, which made a pitch very confident. So I hope the listeners listening to this know that this is a journey that's her path. Your path is probably going to be different, or maybe it'll be the same. When
I spent a lot of years before then being like, what is my path and everything is horrible. And I also think that, and I don't say this I was naive. I didn't really know what the marketplace was looking for or I just approached it from a place of honesty. And looking back, I'm so glad I didn't know things because I wasn't trying to worm my way through what I thought the industry was looking for. Exactly. I just was telling my story. Exactly. And it so happened that this one network was looking for that. We got other, everyone else passed. You know what I mean? It all kind of aligned. And now I'm like, oh, if I'd gone in being like, what does Disney Plus want? Or what does this want? Or what's the marketplace looking for? Yep. It wouldn't have been as authentic. So if I can give any advice, it's like, just be you, do your voice, because when someone is looking for that, that's when the magic can happen.
Exactly. And I know, especially because I'm a writer too, you gave a nice overview, but I know there were moments in between there of tears and frustration, anger and sadness and defeat.
Why am I doing this? And should I just be a theater teacher back home in Miami?
Yep. Yeah. So I know that, but listeners, I just take that with you guys, that there are so many moments in between, there's years in between this overview, and that I think the biggest lesson that you just told us was that you have to be true to yourself. And I know that sounds cliche and people are like, well, everyone says that, because it's true, because it really is true.
And I met a lot of people because I was an assistant for years and years and years. And we'd all have our samples, and some, I remember people being like, I have my 1 hour procedural. I have my multicam sitcom. I have my this, I have my that. And I remember feeling so intimidated because I didn't have 5 samples, let alone all different kinds. But then again, what is your voice? Who are you? Yeah. The sample that got me my agents was, a half-hour dramedy, about my dad's death. It was very me. Also, there was an Elena-esque character named Iris. It was very just, I put myself on the page. And then the other 2 samples were a 1-act play and an essay.
And look at that. And that's brilliant. And this last question, you may have already answered it, but I'm going to ask it because we ask everyone on the show, is what advice would you give your younger writer self? Maybe we could do a reversal. If you had to, there's a thing on TikTok where people are talking to their younger selves. I think it's a really cute little trend. So if you had to talk to your younger self as a writer, and this could be before the show or last week, but what advice would you give yourself?
Well, here's the thing. In season 2 of Diary, we do that too. We have future Elena sort of come and talk to present day Elena, and she doesn't know that she becomes president. It's just kind of the voice in her head. And one thing I realized is, I think my advice, I did already say, be true to yourself, blah, blah, but when I was kind of writing this show and also getting the confidence to believe in myself, to even believe I could have a show, I had to sort of tap in to that 12, 13-year-old self. If you had told 12 or 13-year-old me, you're going to have a show one day, I'd be like, yeah, and it's on Disney. And what of it? I'm also on Broadway because I wanted to be on Broadway. Yeah. But you know what I mean? We have these big dreams for ourselves, and then life kind of beats it out of us. And there's years and years of heartbreak and turmoil in between. And I had to kind of when I got Diary, I'll be honest, I was like, oh my God, this happened to me too early. I'm not ready. I'm going to mess this up. And I had to be but what would 12-year-old Alana say? 12-year-old Alana would be you got this. So I'm going to turn that question on its head. And I'm going to be I turn to 12-year-old, 13-year-old me when I'm feeling these moments of imposter syndrome and I can't do this. And that little girl is yes, you can.
Yes.
Also, why aren't you on Broadway? No, but imagining that, making her proud, but also that little girl who wrote in her diary, saw the world for herself. And there's something, we all got into this career and it's scary. And then we forget that we had any confidence ever. So just tapping back into that part of myself helped me to become a showrunner, honestly.
I love that. I feel the same. 12-year-old Sharday would have kicked my ass.
Right?
Ever doubting myself.
Right? She's shut up.
Are you kidding? You are totes the thing. I was such a little valley girl in Michigan.
Condo? You're amazing. You don't live with your parents?
Yeah. And she'd be so surprised that we're still eating chocolate pudding for breakfast. She's like, we didn't grow out of that? Really?
You eat vegetables now, right? And it's no. Really?
Well, Alana, this has been so fun. Diary of Future President is currently streaming second season on Disney Plus. It is a show, a multi-generational show, a multi-gendered show. All the family can watch it. I really enjoyed watching the episodes that I saw, and I'm so inspired by you, someone who is of a background similar to me, who made it and who's doing it. I'm so encouraged by you, the CrewNet crew, as we call it. And I just want to thank you so much for your time. And I hope many, many more seasons, but also I can't wait to see what other iterations and ideas that you have. I'd love to see that show about your dad come.
Oh, thank you. I haven't thought about that show in a while. I'll see, that's a diary entry. I'll pull out that old diary entry.
Pull it out and dust it off, because if there's anything I love, because I write from the space too, is grief and humor. I love writing from that space.
It's the best, right? It's the best and the worst.
Best and the worst. And I love it. I love it. So can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you so much for joining us on our little show. And I hope to have you again for something else.
Yeah, let's be real besties.
Yeah, let's do this.
Thank you.
Thanks to Alana Pena for coming on the show, and as always to Sharday Sellers for hosting. Diary of a Future President is streaming right now on Disney Plus. And as always, thanks to you, our listeners. If you liked this episode, leave us a review, and if you haven't already, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. For news about future episodes and more, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Final Draft Inc. and Instagram at Final Draft Screenwriting. This episode was produced by Kayla Guess with help from associate producer Emma Vranich. Music by T. Kelly. Thanks again, everyone. Until next time, write on.